So here's one more example of camera raw. We've got an image of a typical automotive dealership spokesperson, and we're going to make some tweaks on this photograph before the image is actually opened up into Photoshop. So once again, we are going to go into our camera raw interface, and I've already double clicked on the file name of this photograph, and we've got our camera raw window opened up. So returning back to our whole idea of white balancing a photograph, in this image we've got a neutral color in the background. She was shot on a white background. When we know we have a specific neutral color in a photograph, and neutral colors are defined as white, black, or middle gray, when we have those neutral colors, we can actually assign neutrality to them by selecting this white balance tool up in the upper left-hand corner of this toolbar in the window, and then taking that eyedropper and clicking it on the neutral color. It will make that neutral color neutral, or in other words, it'll take away a little bit of the color cast. So if you look at this image, it's just got a teeny bit of yellow color cast to it, and I'm just going to click on that, and you can see now how the white is a little bit whiter and has a little bit more of a clean look to it. So exposure, the overall exposure of the image, I'm just going to brighten up a teeny little bit so we just have a little bit more light illuminating our model. And then I'm going to skip the recovery and the fill because I think it looks pretty good just about where it is. And we can kind of leave the rest of these at a default setting. But down below here, there are three sliders that I am concerned with. The clarity slider increases the contrast in the middle tones. So that's different than this contrast slider, because the contrast slider handles the contrast in the bright areas and the dark areas. So if you look at this image, I'll slide that contrast slider over to the right. Take a look in the dark areas of her hair and in the white areas or the bright areas like her jewelry and her teeth. You'll see as I push that contrast to the right, those areas will get much blacker or whiter, but it really doesn't affect the middle tones all too terribly much. So there it is when it's pushed to the extreme versus where it was at our default setting at about plus 25. This clarity slider is going to actually handle the contrast in the middle tones. So middle tones would be in the area of her pants here, or even in the blue of her shirt, or in her skin tones. So I'm going to adjust that, and I'm going to be pretty liberal with my adjustments here. Probably going to put it somewhere in the neighborhood of plus 40. And you can see we've got just a little bit more of a snap in those middle tones right around the shirt and the pants. So that detail is kind of exaggerated. And then finally, we're going to use the Vibrance slider. The Vibrance slider increases the increases the saturation in a photograph, but does it in kind of a subtle way. In the next tutorial, I'll actually get into the saturation slider, which is much more appropriate for things that have bright colors in them, but no skin tones. This image has a lot of skin tone color in here, and we don't want to saturate skin tones too much, but we do want to make them pop. So we can do that with the Vibrance slider, and somewhere around 35 maybe, you can see her facial tonality starts to pop, and it has a nice look to it. So once I've got all those settings set up according to my visual analysis here, I just am going to hit Open Image, and it will open up in Photoshop. There it is.